Now that is a good hot cup of coffee, especially after these storms we've been having the last week. That is why I have been off for a week, so you guys missed a show. It's been some crazy rains down here in Southern California, so you Midwest and East Coast friends of mine, don't laugh, but it has been pretty bad. Really trashing the house. We have a leak in the roof, all that kind of fun stuff. So that's all taken care of, and we're back to do some podcasting for you. So let's continue. This one I think some of my friends have been looking forward to hearing about because I've loosely talked about this through the podcast, and now you're going to get the full story. So let's see if it's all that in a bag of chips. So last show we were talking about my big break, so to speak, in doing the one-act play called In September Woods. Now that was in the spring of '86. So I got a little bit of notoriety, moved up midway in the ranks, if you will, among the actors there, my peers, and started to get a little bit more respect. But it took a whole year until things really changed for me. That following spring, a year later, one of the dean of the theater department, Randy Wanzong, approached me and said, "I need to talk to you in my office." So I went in his office, and he set me down, with another one of the students named Brett Wagner. Brett, from day one, since we were freshmen, was just an amazing, he was a technical person. He was a set designer, set builder, lighting guy. He did everything. And to this day, I've lost touch with him. I don't know if that's what he's still doing, but I hope to connect with him soon. But nonetheless, he was the man. And both of them are looking at me, and I go, "What's wrong?" He goes, "Nothing. You do realize you're graduating in the fall?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You need to be an AD on a show as part of your senior project or whatever it would be, your thesis. I don't know what you would call it." And I'm like, ugh, an AD. Now, an AD stands for assistant director. So let me first tell you what the assistant directors do. They do a lot of grunt work. They are basically, in the beginning stages of the play, when you're rehearsing and everything, you're there to make sure the rehearsal is running smooth. So you're like the administrative assistant. You're like the stage manager. You're just making sure everybody shows up. If they don't show up, you go through and you call them, make sure they're there. And it's really just a lot of running around being an assistant until about halfway through the show. And then things start to ramp up. Now, the name of this show, My Fair Lady. It was the spring musical. It's called the Pioneer Day Musical. And it was actually a pretty huge show. It was done in one of the big theaters there with the big balcony, very historic-looking theater, which could probably hold, 1,000, 1,200 people. It was pretty huge. Huge production, full orchestra, huge lights, big sets, just very, very well done. And a lot of work, I soon found out. After being the little kind of grunt guy running around telling everybody to stand here and get over there, I realized, or I learned, I should say, from Brett that, well, you're going to be running the show once the show goes up. That means Randy, the director, it has nothing more to do with the show. He shows up in his tuxedo or whatever, his suit, and he sits there in the audience with his wife and family and watches his show 4 nights in a row, while I'm actually running the entire show from this little booth that's in the balcony with headphones, and I have what's called a cue sheet. This was a huge undertaking for me, and probably the first time that I really had to learn how to be a professional in planning and time management and all that, which is something I really carried through to this day in all the different jobs I've had. Really just being good at being independent and taking charge. I had to write up a sheet that followed the script to give cues to the lighting people, when to bring in the lights, when the special effects would come in for lighting. I would have communications that are cues that I would have to give to the stage manager, who was actually backstage, who would run set changes, costume changes when people needed to be out. When curtains open and close, I would call the cues for when the conductor needs to stand up and when the spotlights need to hit him. So I'm running all the lighting cues, like I said. all of that stuff. I was so stressed out, and something that I really didn't want to do because I wanted to act, but I had to do this, and it was a great, great experience, and I really had a blast doing it. I've never done anything like it again. And let me say, the show went great. It went off without a hitch. But I digress about all that. During the production of the show, something special happened. An audition that would change how the Chico State Theater Department viewed little Larry Morrow happened during the same time. Once again, my first acting buddy and my mentor, Joe Hilsey, was one of the 3 directors to direct the student-directed one-acts for 1987. The play that Joe was going to direct was called, anyone? Charlie the Chicken. All right, so before we get into that, let me tell you the story about Charlie the Chicken, okay? I thought it was a comedy. I thought it was, from what I knew, not too many people were actually told what the play was about. I thought it was a comedy about a chicken that could talk and run around and dance. But it actually was written by a man who, as a child, was in a concentration camp during World War II. And he wrote this play as an adult. He became a professor about a chicken who lived backstage with a theater owner who had this chicken that he devised a way to let the chicken talk. It's this box that he put around his neck. And he had a remote control. And when he flipped the remote, the chicken could kind of talk through little, you could understand him, but he still sounded like a chicken. And the funny thing about the play, the ironic thing was, he was a slave. They lived backstage, and when they were backstage is where their room was and their little kitchenette and all that stuff. Charlie was basically the housekeeper, and he did everything for the person that was running the show, the host of the Charlie the Chicken show. And he would talk, he would do the dishes, and they would fight, and it wasn't really funny. It was kind of dramatic, and it was about this chicken who all he wanted to do was be free, and he wished he could fly, and he wanted to be out of his enslavement, so to speak. But when the lights would go up every night, he would flip the switch on the remote, and now Charlie can't talk anymore. He can only cluck. He's back to being normal, and he would go out on the stage, and his owner would make Charlie dance and cluck and, tap his feet to count to 5 or whatever it was. Really, very silly things. And then after the show was over, they'd go backstage, and Charlie would talk to him about how he wants to be free and he wants to meet people. And it's another one of those one acts where there's really only 2 people, the owner and the chicken. There was one character who comes in, a very wealthy woman, who, if I could remember it properly, wants to buy Charlie and take care of him. I don't know if she wants to free him or just, give him a better life. And, of course, he can't communicate that he wants to go because the owner flips the switch and all he can do is cluck. And during one point in the play, Charlie gets up on the table and gives his big speech while he's clucking. And while he is clucking, there is a person on the side of the stage, like a showgirl, who stood alongside the piano player who played the music for Charlie. She actually had his monologue. It was written on big white cards, and she would hold them up to the audience while he was clucking. So the challenge was Charlie had to perform this monologue, this dramatic monologue with chicken noises while she's holding up like a big card showing what his real dialogue is, what he's really trying to say. He does this while the potential owner, or new owner, the woman, is there, and when he's done, he runs to her to try to grab her legs to say, hey, take me with you. Well, of course, he's clucking, he's screaming, so to her, this crazy chicken's coming after her, and his owner beats him up. And it's not happy. It's actually, it's kind of dramatic. I mean, it looks silly because you see Charlie in this outfit, but I mean, it's not a comedy, is the bottom line of the whole thing. You guys remember the story I told about my mom coming to see the play. She thought it was about animal abuse. So, But anyways, that is basically the story of Charlie the Chicken. But going back to the audition, nobody knew what the play was about. Joe didn't really talk a whole lot about it. He just said it's about a chicken who lives with a theater owner and performs on stage, and then after the show is over, he can talk. So everybody just thinks it's a big comedy, right? A lot of people showed up to audition for this. My peers, my fellow actors, good buddies, people. I'm like, all right, everybody wanted a piece of this play. Primarily, obviously, I should say, because Joe was directing it. Everybody wanted to be in a play that Joe was directing, and so did I. And I actually thought, well, this play was written for me because I'm this skinny Barney Fife-looking guy. Who else is going to get this, right? So the audition happens, and I get cast in the play. I was very excited. It's the one time I actually thought, like, you know what? Who else is going to do this? Really? I mean, it's like, look at me. But then again, I couldn't be too prideful. There were a lot of other talented actors there auditioning as well. So anybody could have done the show. It wasn't just like I was the only one. But you know what I'm saying. Obviously, just looking at me, I could have just been a shoo-in just by my look alone, I would imagine. So very excited to be in this play. Very excited to work with Joe. And couldn't wait to get started on this. Now, this was going to be a 4 to 6 week rehearsal process, like normal, like most of the shows are. And then it started. What do you think started to happen? Anybody want to take a shot? Yes, jokes. Jokes started happening. While I was very excited about being in this play, other people thought it was time to start making fun of me. And it was really rough because I thought I deserved to be in the play. I worked hard, and this was going to be a big, challenging role, and people should be excited. But everybody cared about, what am I going to look like in a chicken outfit? What's my chicken outfit going to be? They're making fun of my legs. They're making fun of, are you going to go out and be a method actor and study chickens? All that kind of stuff. Just joke after joke. And I'm not joking. I'm not joking. It got to the point where I got in a couple pretty hefty verbal fights with some buddies that I really thought were, good friends of mine, and they were really, really hassling me. And it got to, I'm like, really? I go, are we in 3rd grade again? Am I on the elementary school playground and these bullies coming up and picking on me? I mean, come on, for goodness sake, we're in our 20s. I mean, we're still young, but we're not kids, and we're trying to take ourselves seriously. But the jokes were flying all the time. And it is funny when you look back, because I had to wear yellow leotards and these big stuffed feet that were like chicken feet, but they were big stuffed kind of a thing. And I had yellow makeup on my face. And then I had a head covering that was made out of like felt, like a chicken head. It just went around my head like a cap, so that my hair would be covered up. And I had these gloves on. So it was very cartoony, like a Mickey Mouse outfit, the big feet and the white gloves, that kind of a thing. And I knew I was going to have to wear that. It wasn't like a secret. Everybody knew that whoever was going to be Charlie was going to be wearing the outfit, baby. So that's all everybody cared about. And it got to the point where people were suggesting the only reason you got that role was just because of the way you looked. And, I had said that, but that's okay because I said it. But when other people started saying it, it started to hurt me. It even got to the point to where Ted Wentz, the director that I've been talking about, very fond of, my first director in many plays, also directed me in many plays. He was one of my professors for my history of theater class. And even during the class, which had like 10, 15 people in it, he started to make jokes like a few weeks before the play about me being Charlie, and started making chicken jokes. You're going to cluck? You're going to dance? What are you going to look like in those tights? Boy, can't wait to see your legs. And everybody in the class weren't all actors. They were, production people or people that had different emphasis on their major in theater. So it wasn't just fellow actors. It was like people that I didn't really know that well. And I was just kind of sitting there going, well, let's talk about this later. Let's learn about the history of theater. Okay, I don't really want to get into this if we don't have to. So weeks of this went by, and I got to the point when it got close to the dress rehearsals where I had to actually start wearing the costume. I got really freaked out. Everybody's just going to laugh at me. Nobody's going to take me seriously. But the only person that stood in my corner was Joe. Joe just kept saying, don't worry, trust me, it's going to be great, okay? Everybody's going to make fun of you. They would have made fun of anybody that was playing Charlie. Just keep up the great work and wait till this, gets finished, and let's see what people think. Even to the point, like when the first night of the show, I had my costume on, and I wouldn't let anybody see me in the costume. When I went back into the green room, I would have full sweatsuit on. The only thing people would see that were in the green room, like any of the crew or the actors and actresses from the other one acts that were going to be coming up next. They just saw my yellow face. And right before the show would go on, everybody's out of the green room and the lights are out in there. I'd take the sweats off and I'd put the chicken cap on, and then I would go out. But I wasn't going to let anybody see me as much as I could. Now, during dress rehearsals is when the staff photographer is there and they take pictures of you, that people see pictures of you as the chicken in the lobby, before the show. So it wasn't like 100%, but at least I didn't have to talk to people in the outfit. So the show went up. Very nervous the first night. I walked out and it just went really well, especially during the dramatic parts. It got really quiet. I was thinking people were going to make jokes, but there's a part in the play where Charlie tries to fly, and this is backstage on the set, and he's got the box turned on so he can talk, and he's trying to fly and he keeps falling down, and he just starts crying and he falls apart, and it's really just a little dramatic thing there. And you get to see Charlie, it's not just about this chicken, right? Like I said, it was written by a man that was a child in a concentration camp. So that's kind of what he's reflecting on. So the show went well. Everybody loved it except for my mom. But anyways, I really was excited because a couple cool things happened. First thing is, one of my professors that I had for an English creative writing class had nothing to do with the theater department. She was my teacher a couple years earlier, and she liked some of my writing. It wasn't that great, but she thought it was, I had a knack for it. Well, I kind of lost touch with her. She was my teacher. You move on. She came to see Charlie the Chicken. And the night of the show, when the show was over, I went backstage, and there was some flowers there and a card. And she wrote on the card what a moving performance it was, and it really brought her to tears. And she says, "I will never forget watching dear Charlie try to fly." And that I was like, see, that's it. I did the job that I was supposed to do. I went in there. It moved somebody that was outside of the theater department that just wanted to come in and be entertained. I made him laugh. I was touching with my performance. A job well done. I still have that card. Something I'll probably never get rid of. It's in my little theater scrapbook because that was my little 15 seconds of fame. Not 15 minutes, 15 seconds, because a much smaller scale. And I was very excited. But the biggest compliment came to me that following Monday. After the show was over, that history of theater class I had on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So shows run Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and then Sunday afternoon. And that's then you're done. So Monday comes around, and I'm in class. Once again, there's 10, 12 people in the class. And before the class gets started, everybody's there. Ted said, "I got to make an announcement." And he publicly apologized to the class and to myself for the way he was harassing me. And he said he wishes that everybody would have seen the play. Or if they hadn't, he goes, they really missed out. I should say that's what he told him. He goes, if you didn't see Larry in Charlie the Chicken, you really missed out. And he just said really nice compliments, and I didn't know what to say. I actually, got a little choked up because he was very sincere and he was very apologetic. And once again, Ted went on the top of my list. My first director directed me in a lot of plays, always supported me. And when I thought he lost that support, I got the support back from him. So that was really cool. And all the people that made fun of me apologized in some way. And it was just a really great thing. All of this went on while I was in the production of My Fair Lady. So it was very stressful because I was rehearsing for Charlie the Chicken while and getting ready to perform it while we were in this pre-production for My Fair Lady, which, by the way, the show got its name changed. The cast decided to call it My Fair Larry. So that was kind of fun. I wish we were going to make a T-shirt that said My Fair Larry on it. I don't know why. It was just kind of fun, though. So another thing happened, which we're going to talk about next time. Very cool thing. This led to the biggest acting challenge of my life and one of the greatest experiences in all my life, and we're going to talk about that next time. So I want to thank everybody for listening. sticking in there. You finally got to hear the Charlie story, the 3 or 4 of you that always wanted to know, you played a chicken? So I had to explain it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. For those people that are listening that were there, I hope I told the story right. I hope I wasn't too dramatic about it. But always have to colorize it, if you can colorize a podcast to make it entertaining. So once again, everybody, thanks for your support. Thanks for listening. And next time, we're going to continue this story of what happened as a result of Charlie the Chicken. Take care. We'll talk to you very soon. And those guests out there that I'm waiting on, please come on the show. Because there's a lot of people that I've surrounded myself with over the many years that actually are very successful. And they're going to tell you some things that you should do, whereas I'm telling you what not to do. And we'll get to those stories coming up soon. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.